Hello, everyone. I know you haven't heard from us in a bit. This is the random podcast of awesomeness.
Random podcast of awesomeness.
Random podcast of awesomeness.
Awesomeness.
Today,
Unfortunately, we are lacking a bit on our awesomeness today because two of our members seem to have been sucked into an interdimensional warp hole. We hope they will return safely, but so far all we can really do is, well, hope.
yes,
Anyway, I am Grid at 14.
I'm Shadow Wolf.
I am over on Cloud 9. And everybody calls me Cloud, by the way.
Yes. But we are missing Corbin Burke this time.
Yes.
So then, for the past few weeks, Cloud picked up the game this time, and we've been playing the awesomeness that is Streets of Rage to the Sega Genesis.
The first one.
Yes.
Because there were sequels.
Yes, there were a few sequels. To clarify, there are different versions of this game. For example, there has been a recent port, I believe, on Steam that will allow you to get Streets of Rage for your PC. I didn't try that because I don't own Steam, and I don't have the cash to spend on Steam if I did own it.
But we don't... Well, Burke's not here right now, so yes, emulators.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are the future of video gaming.
Hell, even most modern-day consoles are getting basic emulation going.
Right. Streets of Rage, because this is going to be a relatively short discussion.
Hopefully.
Because there are only three of us, and I don't know if we can keep a conversation going for the full hour. So we're going to go for at least a half hour. The story of Streets of Rage. It's set in a nameless city that gets taken over by a crime syndicate headed by Mr. X. Mr. X basically takes control of all the economy and the lifestyle of basically everybody who lives there, including the police force, so nobody can stop him. It is up to one of three police officers who have not given into Mr. X's influence to take down his cohorts and defeat him and restore peace to the city.
Are you badass enough to rescue the city?
I'm badass enough. I've done it before.
I have not. Now, to open with this, I'm going to say right now that I did not actually finish this game. I got to the final boss of this game, and then he proceeded to openly crack open my skull on 3 different surfaces. It's not fun.
Yes.
And I didn't actually go back to it after that. I apologize.
Shut up. How far?
Cloud.
Shut up.
Oh,
Shut up for a second. Shut up. How far did you get in the game?
I actually didn't get very far in this game. I started playing it.
You remember what?
I don't really
remember what level you got to?
I think I might have been in the second level. So I didn't
Second
get very
level.
far.
Okay, so very far. All right. I actually have beaten the game, but not in single player mode. Me and my brother, we actually owned this game on the Sega Genesis on the 6-pack video game edition. It had like 6 vintage Sega Genesis games in one, Streets of Rage being one of them. So, and because we did the Sega Genesis version of it, we could do co-op play. So me and my brother, we teamed up and we ended up beating the final boss. So, yeah. I beat the game.
Very nice.
It was a long time ago, but I beat it.
Yeah, using skills that have somewhat waned over the years, but are still there.
The way that Streets of Rage works, it's a beat 'em up. You know, you're basically a one-man army taking down hundreds and hundreds of carbon copies of the same person.
I want to say it's closer to a single 100, but
they're called palette swaps. They eventually become palette swaps.
yes.
The game is a linear progression. It's technically a side scroller, except you can't go left, except in the last level. Your job is to take care of all the enemies that show up on the screen and defeat the boss at the end of each level, and then you win.
It's essentially Double Dragon.
Yeah. It's Double Dragon if the enemies were somewhat less diverse and your armaments were a bit more present.
In this game, there is an item system, technically.
Yeah.
You can equip weapons that the enemies drop, or weapons that you happen to find around, such as a knife, a smoke bomb, or a pipe. This game is surprisingly violent, even though there's no blood.
It's Streets of Rage. Of course it's violent.
Yes, the Streets of Rage. And I'm sure lots of people have raged at this game. Segue, because it is actually pretty hard if you don't know what you're doing.
And even if you do finally know what the hell you're doing, like I did when I actually played through it the second time, it is still difficult in places.
Yeah, I've heard of. I have watched people like beat the entire game without even getting hit. It is possible, but
yes, it's possible. But my God, you have no life.
Exactly. But all it comes down to, because the enemies are usually scripted, especially the bosses. If you figure out the enemy scripts, you can figure out how to attack them and then dodge their scripted movements, and then attack them until they're dead.
Yeah, just don't screw up that memorization of their scripts, because if you do, you'll end up flat on the ground, bleeding out through different orifices that you didn't even know you had.
Okay. So there are 8 levels in this game, each one ending in a boss fight, except for the 7th level, which is kind of like an intermission level. The final boss is interesting in that he has projectile attacks, which none of the other enemies in the game actually have.
Although, if I have to say something, I found that those particular attacks didn't do that much. Again, I am a pansy. Not only did I not finish the game, but I couldn't finish the game on easy mode. There are different difficulty settings for this, and they do affect how the enemies actually attack you. They also, I believe, affect the amount of health that enemies have. And if you play on anything normal mode or above, bring a friend. That's what it's for.
Well, see, here's the thing, and it's a big thing. When you enter this game co-op, they double up on the bosses. You have to fight 2 copies of the same boss at the end of each level.
Really?
Yes.
That makes sense given what happens during the gauntlet at the end. But, well, I don't know. I don't know.
There are 2 you have to fight 2 copies of every boss except for the final boss. The final boss was only 1.
Well, which again makes sense. After all, it's Mr. X.
Right.
Yes, Mr.
Better
X.
not be a clone of Mr. X going around, or else he owns more than just this city.
in his fancy Thompson machine gun, aka the Tommy gun.
Mm-hmm.
Pure gangster fashion.
Yes.
Now, Shadow, from what you've seen of the game, what are your thoughts on it? Just gameplay-wise. I mean, you got, based on, your attacks, you do know all the attacks, right? Or
I'm not positive if I know them all, but I, for the most part, got used to most of the attacks, and I didn't think it was too bad playing through it. What I did, granted, my system kind of crashed when I was trying to play the game, but I got the basic idea of it. But yeah, it's pretty much just like any basic fighter where you're just moving around, you get your jumps, your punches and whatnot.
At its core, this is very, very simple. I'm glad that Shadow brought up Double Dragon, because that's pretty much all this is. You do have a special attack that allows you to call in a few of the other police members that aren't corrupted by Mr. X and wipe out all the enemies on screen and or do major damage to a boss. There are 3 different characters that you get to play as. You have Axel, who I think is the black guy. Is Axel the black guy?
I believe so.
If Axel's the black guy, there's the chick, and then there's the white nerdy dude.
Oh, actually,
I first played as the white
Adam
nerd.
is the black guy.
Yeah, Adam is the black guy.
And
Axel is the white nerdy dude.
Yep. And then there's
And
Blaze.
do we not remember the chick's name?
Her name is Blaze.
Blaze. That makes sense. Blaze. But yes, Adam, Axel, and Blaze all control pretty much the same, with the exception of how of each of their finishing moves on their combos. You see, if you press the attack button repeatedly up against a foe, you will go into a combo, and the last hit of this combo does a bit more damage than the hits prior to it. It's usually a strong enough combo, at least on easy mode, to take down the normal mooks that you're fighting, until of course they swap pods and gain more HP. Each of the characters controls pretty much the same. All the special attacks are the same. Their throws, I'm pretty sure, are somewhat different. I know that Adam's throw is... I'm pretty sure that Adam's main throw is just a forward throw. I really don't know, though. I only played this game with Adam and Axel, and I only got to Mr. X with Adam. So
actually, some people favor Blaze because of her speed. She can grab people from a distance without getting attacked.
Yeah. Yeah, each of the characters does have different statistics. For example, Adam is the slowest but supposedly hits the hardest. I didn't really notice it that much. Axel is the more balanced out character with the best jump. Again, didn't really notice it that much. And Blaze is the fastest. Didn't play as Blaze. If you want to throw enemies around, Blaze is probably your best bet if she actually is in fact the fastest.
She is the fastest.
If she's the fastest one to move around on screen, then that's definitely a plus. You should pretty much only ever play as Blaze.
I'd agree with that.
The majority of the time, your goal isn't exactly to defeat all the enemies on the screen. Your goal is to defeat all the enemies on the screen and not take so much damage.
Right.
Yes.
You have to be somewhat skilled at this game, which I am not.
Yeah, but you could. There's still a lot of room to screw around. I mean,
yeah, there's a lot of room to screw around in here. I mean, most of the enemies don't actually hit you that hard, at least on easy mode. I don't know if their damage scales up under the difficulty settings, but they don't hit you that hard. But they will be hitting you often if you don't know what you're doing.
I mean, one example that you can kind of they go easy on you because did you guys bring up the special system?
I did.
Okay, the special system definitely balances the game out because they give you a fresh special every time you lose a life, I believe.
Unless, of course, you're in the gauntlet level. I hated that.
Right. The final level, you're not allowed to use your special because
it makes sense that you're not allowed to use your special there, mind you.
Because it's a police car that fires a rocket launcher.
It's a police car. It fires a rocket, an RPG, and it destroys everything on the screen. There's no way in hell it could arc in a building.
In a penthouse suite, for that matter.
Although, there are two other areas where it makes no freaking sense how it would actually work.
The factory being one of them.
Okay, that makes three. I was thinking of the boat cruise, the factory, and the elevator.
No, the elevator makes sense.
The elevator, I suppose, makes sense because, you could theoretically arc it up high enough to where it would do that. No way in hell they're going to do it in one shot.
Oh, they could.
They could, but they're not going to.
We're really going down this road, Gerdette?
Yeah.
We're going down this road. Okay. And I must say, this game. What's impressive about this game for being the first of its series is that it actually has some replay value, like a lot of
replay value,
because it has alternate endings.
Oh, it has alternate endings.
Yes, it has alternate endings because when you get to the final boss, technically the final boss is optional. You can either
you can choose to join Mr. X's ranks, but you get the bad ending if you do.
You get the bad ending, exactly. And an interesting thing about co-op mode, and my brother and I were stupid enough to do this, is that because we were like 8 at the time, when you get to the final boss, he asks each player individually if they would like to join his ranks. If one player says yes and the other player says no, Mr. X makes you fight to the death.
It's pretty crazy.
I'm not even
That
kidding.
makes sense.
That's what they
That's pretty much what happened in Double Dragon.
And we were so pissed because it's like, wait a minute, we can't beat the final boss on one. Fuck. So, and I think after the fight is over, Mr. X asks you again if you want to be his right-hand man. If you say no at that point, you have to go solo against him.
Right.
Yeah. So, if you want to see all the endings, and I bet, since this game came out in the 90s, that you would probably want to, it's either you play this or you play a different game. You would want to replay this game as often as you feel comfortable doing.
Yeah. Mind you, going through these levels multiple times, you definitely do get better at the game. At the very least, it looks like you get better at the game. I'm not entirely sure if I did or not, because, I still got my ass handed to me.
Yes, you did.
The soundtrack in this game was, all in all, not as memorable as I was hoping, but it was still good for what it was.
You didn't like the soundtrack?
No, I did like the soundtrack, but I don't remember a single part of it. I remember, tap dancing on screen to the boss theme as they were coming up. It was like, dong, 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 dong. And then, the actual instruments kick in. Yeah, and it's like, I love that part. I love the intro to that, and I love the instrumental that actually plays there. The boss theme itself is actually very good. Most of the other level themes, though, I don't remember at all. So
no, the level themes are pretty forgettable, except maybe for the third one. They had some good soundtrack, some good songs in that game. Both of the boss themes, especially the final boss theme. I look up the final boss theme and listen to it at least a couple times a month, because it's just one of those themes that is just so unforgettable. And it's so simple too. That's the beauty of it.
What of you, Shadow? What did you think of the soundtrack?
I liked it. It wasn't really didn't make me go wow. But it was video game music that I could appreciate. It wasn't annoying or anything. I did like it.
Right. The actual sounds themselves in this game are actually very satisfying too. It sounds good when you actually kick the shit out of something. It really does. And it's supposed to, because again, it's a fucking beat 'em up game.
Right.
If it doesn't sound and feel good when you beat the shit out of something, something is wrong. This is a violent game. Do not buy for your children's.
Oh, that's that, dude.
If you think about the Sega, is when it came to the Sega, the Sega Genesis was one of the first systems to actually show a lot of blood and guts.
Barring the Super Nintendo, of course.
What did Super Nintendo have?
Mortal Kombat.
No, that was Sega Genesis.
Yeah, it was also on the Super Nintendo.
Oh.
Also, the Super Nintendo also had a port of Doom.
I did hear about that, actually. But you have to consider you have to consider that there were a lot more bloody games on the Sega.
There were a lot more bloody games on the Sega, but Super Nintendo also had Killer Instinct. I'm just saying, you can't really count the Super Nintendo out of, Bloodfest, because there were definitely Bloodfests on the Super Nintendo.
There were some, yeah. I'm just trying to think of which came first, though, the Sega or the Super Nintendo.
I'm pretty sure you'll find that the Super Nintendo came out first, but the Sega Genesis I'm almost going to guarantee that the Sega Genesis had more violent games on it. I don't know exactly how I'm going to guarantee that, but that's what I'm going to guess.
But yeah, I think it worked out pretty well with the sound.
I must say, though, Streets of Rage, even though there's, like, no blood, it's about as violent as it gets without any gore. I mean, you can throw knives at people, you can get shot, you can hit people with a pipe. It's crazy.
And a baseball bat. You can suplex policewomen.
Good times.
You can get caught on fire.
How about those policewomen with the friggin' invincibility frames?
Now, the thing about those is, at least in easy mode, these weren't so bad. Mainly because you could just sit on them and wait for them to voluntarily get out of the system, punch them, and then they'll go back into the system and have them locked like that. It took a while, mind you, but you could do this, and you could progress that way. And as far as I saw, the only ones that actually took real advantage of that were the Stage 2 policewomen. The Stage 1 and 3 policewomen didn't really take advantage of that for some reason.
Well, Gerda, you played through the game with it. You didn't beat it, but you played through it.
Right.
Did it feel fresh throughout, even though they had to use palette swaps of the same enemies?
Actually, it did. I was kind of surprised on the fact that the game is short enough to not actually get old with its enemy selection. Its enemy selection is very, very limited. There's like a total of maybe 5 different enemies throughout the entire game, not counting boss recolors.
Not counting boss recolors. Yeah, there's the jugglers, the thugs, the sliders, the policewomen, and the karate people.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
About it.
They all have different attacks. They all do different things, and they're all decently unique. Even when it was getting into Pound Swamp territory, it never felt old. It always felt, like, okay, they can do this because, it's Genesis stuff. They don't really have the tech to have all these different sprites and scripts going around.
Right.
In later versions, in later installments of the Streets of Rage series, starting with Streets of Rage 2, each enemy had a randomly selected health bar that you could see when you hit them. And they also had names, except the names get repeated after a while.
Yeah, that makes sense,
Although I'm not sure how necessary it would be to have a name for everyone.
True. There would be no reason to have a name for everyone, but the health bar system here would have been nice.
Yes.
Yeah, but I agree. The health bar system would have been great. But
it would have been nice, but it's not really needed.
But then again, it kind of adds a sense of simplicity, and it also builds a sense of contrast between the normal thugs and the boss thugs.
Right.
So
if this combo string will actually take down your foe, and then when it doesn't, it's like, man, I gotta try it again. And when that doesn't, okay, one more time. Then they're usually down.
I bet if you looked it up on there's probably a Wikia for Streets of Rage, so they probably got the whole formula figured out. I never looked it up myself, but it's probably out there.
Oh, yeah, I guarantee it's out there because these enemies do definitely have set HP.
Randomly selected HP, but
actually no. At the very least on easy mode. Again, I only played in easy mode. But the same colored sprites will actually, pretty much always take the same amount of damage. I think the exception here is with Adam, because Axel, for the level 1 goons, Axel only takes a single combo string to take down these guys. Adam will actually vary depending on how much damage it takes. I don't know why. Especially since Adam is supposed to be stronger than Axel.
I'm sorry, I keep getting the two confused. All I know is that one of
Axel is the nerd guy that likes video games. Adam is the black guy who is, well, buff and black.
You could say that that's another. I don't know if it's bad for the game, but you can identify each of the characters without even using their names. You could just say white guy, black guy, or white chick.
Yeah, it's definitely stereotyped, but it's not a bad stereotype for this because Axel doesn't look like your usual computer nerd because he's not. He's your standard everyday white guy.
Pretty much.
Just your average everyday white guy. How does that song go? Normal, average, everyday white guy.
You don't
Shadow,
want
Shadow, how much time we got?
Let's see here. If we're gonna do it half an hour, we actually have 5 minutes. If we
have
want.
5 minutes left. Okay.
God damn it!
So I guess this comes to final thoughts on the game.
Not quite. I want to go over a few of the boss designs.
All right. No. Just put it in the final thoughts, Gerda. We got 5 minutes.
All right. I guess I'll do final thoughts. I enjoyed playing this game. I did. The gauntlet pissed me the hell off because for some reason I wasn't able to abuse the same script with the twins fight that I did before. And I literally died and used 2 continues on these chicks. But otherwise, I didn't really have many problems in the game. The first twins fight I found really easy. I don't exactly know what Corb was complaining about, but again, I was on normal mode. Final thoughts, I enjoyed this game. The soundtrack is nice. The boss theme is really good. The diversity between the characters is actually pretty cool. The enemy scripting and sprite work is actually very nicely done. The item selection is very good. The hidden items is the hidden item stuff is decent. I think they could have had better health power-ups throughout most of the levels. That stupid Apple almost never does enough to heal you. But
the trick is to save the chicken for when you're about to move on to the other side of the screen.
Right. Yeah, but the one thing I thought that they could have been more generous on with the items is the special attacks. Because the only reason I would ever beat some of these boss fights is by spamming that after I died.
Well, that's because you suck at this game.
Yeah, I suck at this game. I will not deny that. I suck at this game. And I still got to the final boss on easy mode, so pick your poison. Anyway, yeah, there's my final thoughts. Shadow?
From what I played of this game, I did enjoy it. I like fighters as it is, so I did like this game a lot. The music was decent. The graphics weren't bad at all. Especially for a Sega game, I did enjoy the graphics. But yeah, I thought it was a good game overall from what I played of it.
Mm-hmm. And you, Cloud?
Yes. This game, this game kind of reminds me of my theory that every good game you've ever heard of has a good soundtrack. You know what I'm saying? Some of the songs in this game are very memorable. And me being a musically oriented person, picks up on that. And I freaking love it. As I mentioned before, I listen to some of the themes pretty regularly. It was really hard to beat as a kid on the Sega Genesis. It was awesome because it was simple. It was very, very simple. And, for people who get easily distracted by, a lot of information at once, they can really enjoy this game because there's no health bars except for your own and the bosses. You never have to go left except on the final level. It's just it's less is more at work, in my opinion, for video games. And that's my final thought.
All right. In an addendum to my final thoughts, because I think we got a minute left.
Yeah.
Screw, that's not enough time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Scores. Scores, I am going to give this game, my only reason for giving this game a score this low, really, is because I couldn't beat it, and that's me sucking. So I'm slightly biased towards that. I'm going to give this game a 7 out of 10. I really think that this is a fun game to play, and I do recommend it to people. But I suck at it, so I don't enjoy it as much as probably other people that are good at beat-em-ups would enjoy.
Yeah, like to add to Gerdet's thought, if you really want to play this game, I recommend the Xbox 360 version, or they have like a Sega emulation of it. You can get on a disc. It comes with like 6 or 15 games or something like that. Streets of Rage being one of them. You can also check out the other Streets of Rage titles on this emulation port, and you could play with a partner. So it's got that going for it.
All right, Shadow scores.
So, based on what I've been listening to from you guys and from my own observation playing it, I'd probably give this game an 8. An 8 out of 10.
All right. And why?
Overall, it wasn't a bad game, and I really was wanting to play more of it. I just couldn't.
All right, then. And Cloud scores.
I think that this game highly memorable. I mean, after all, a whole series of games spawned from this one game.
Right.
You know, they were all sequels, and I believe they made a remake for a later title. I'm not really sure. I will give this game an 8.5 out of 10.
All right, then. With that being said, there are a few boss designs that I really dislike, but I guess I'll make my own video discussing those at a later time.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
So,
With that
being said, I am Gerdet14.
I'm Shadow Wolf.
I'm over on Cloud 9.
And this has been the Random Podcast of Awesomeness number X, because I seriously have lost count of which number we're at.
I think it's 16 now.
Yes.
Yeah.
16.
So we'll talk to you guys when we
Next time.
Yes, sir. Next time. Take care.
Next time.